Hey folks, Richard Tubb here, and I'm joined today by my old friend Paul Fennick. How you doing, Paul?
Very good, Richard. Good to speak to you again.
And whereabouts? I'm at home in Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. Whereabouts do we find you today, Paul?
So I am up in sunny Dundee, north of the border, so up in Bonnie, Scotland.
Indeed, because I know you're out. You're like me. You're out on the road quite a lot, spending time with MSPs, aren't you? So
Yeah, I do. Get to go out and see our partners, which is always good.
Yeah. Now, you and I were having a conversation before we started recording here, and we're just talking about Avast's latest sort of innovation here, the Secure Web Gateway. So I put you on the spot a little bit, didn't I? And I said, look, rather than talk about it, you and I, what about if I fire up Zoom and we can do a little recording? So, yeah, thank you for joining me on the video here today. For people who are not aware of who Avast are, who are Avast and what do you do within Avast?
So, first of all, I'm a sales engineer, so my role within Avast is to kind of educate probably the sales staff, but also our customers in our product set and kind of make it easier for them to understand all the technical aspects. So that's kind of really where I fit in, more a tuition on the products and so forth. But for Avast, we are probably, I think we're allowed to say, the largest AV vendor out with China, and that's not in counting, of course, Microsoft with their Windows Defender. But we're on over 400 million endpoints. We were historically two companies, AVG and Avast, primarily on consumer, and that's where I think a lot of people will have come across us from the freemium model. Yeah. But we're kind of now focused on the business sector as well. But we use all that important information we've gathered from all that freemium to be able to determine threats wherever they are globally, and hopefully protect other consumer and businesses to a greater extent.
Yeah, and I think most people, as you've alluded to, most people know or vaguely know of Avast via AVG and the free antivirus and that. It's so much more, isn't it? I mean, I've had my eyes open because there is a ton of cool stuff going on, including the Secure Web Gateway that we're going to talk about next. But there's a load of business products in there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of taken it from the consumer, but there's a lot of kind of technologies and so forth transferred across into the business side of things. But yeah, also the free model. Unfortunately, nothing comes for free, but we do use that information to help protect. And we do feel we have a need as a security vendor to help protect everyone and try and stop all this cybercrime activity that we're going up against.
And that's where the Secure Web Gateway fits into it. So I know from speaking to lots of managed service providers, lots of IT companies, you know, antivirus, when you and I started out in the industry, Paul, without giving away our ages, I mean, we're young men, obviously, but when we started out, antivirus was almost, I'm not going to say nice to have, but you could sort of get away without it. And now, of course, antivirus is a must-have. But the most progressive IT companies that I'm seeing are realizing that, you know, antivirus cannot catch absolutely everything, and you need to stop some of the bad guys getting in closer to the source, and that's where the Secure Gateway product fits in. Secure Web Gateway product, isn't it?
Yeah. So as you say, it used to be AV, and that was seen as the kind of silver bullet to catch everything. But unfortunately, due to the money they're making, which I think reputedly is up to about 1.5 trillion a year they're making on that. So big business. We have had to kind of combat these threats in many different ways. So as you say, we need to create this layering effect to try and hit it at all levels and through all different methods as well. And that's what we're kind of expanding into, kind of the network security, rather than just, as you say, the AV was just the endpoint. This is looking beyond the endpoint.
Yeah. So Secure Web Gateway, if I understand it correctly, you know, and I don't want this to be too heavy on the technical airport. Yeah. The audience is IT businesses, but fundamentally, you know, if we talk about DNS and things like that, but fundamentally, Secure Web Gateway is about blocking access for end users to bad websites and downloads and locations and things like that, isn't it? So it's stopping the users from getting into a situation where they might be clicking on something or downloading something that's bad for them.
Yeah, so I suppose just if I flick on to kind of kind of gathered some stats and stuff. Now, as you see, the web is getting more and more used to a greater extent, but probably the central sort of information in the bottom there is that, search engines, whilst they're doing their due diligence and so forth, they aren't unfortunately able to protect us from all these kind of bad websites where there is infections of malware and stuff where we might end up finding ourselves. So we need something else to assist with that. And because it's kind of going through the DNS request, for those that are not quite so sure on DNS, it's simply a sort of lookup index. So whenever you request a web page, website, it goes to the index and says, but with the service we have, the fundamental question is it safe to deliver the content and access that web page or website? If the answer is no, it'll be blocked, or yes. That's very simply, it's a yes-no question. We can kind of get it to scan further, but really it's down to that. And it's taking it from certainly more a security stance rather than based on the content keywords, whether it be on a particular subject.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. And from an IT business perspective here, it's so important to prevent these issues in the first place, because you and I have worked in the industry a while, as we've said. We know that once one of these sort of rogue operators gets through, once you download something malicious, it takes a lot of cleaning up. And from an IT business perspective, that takes a lot of time, and it eats into your profit margin an awful lot to help users after the bad stuff's happened.
Yeah, I mean, just to highlight that, you're almost reading through my script, Richard. As we say, it's shocking the amount of cyber attacks that we're seeing nowadays. And unfortunately, as I was able to find out, I mean, these are only indicative costs. It's difficult to tell from all these sort of researching. But, I mean, the average cost of $15,000 per infection, as you know, they tidy up on that. And it's not just the loss of, finance costs due to, replacing machine, wiping it, rebuilding it. But it's much more than that to perhaps that customer. It's reputation with their associated customers and so forth. So that has longer, more significant impact rather than just being an inconvenience for the day or two that IT have to come in and sort that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know of a couple of MSPs who have implemented sort of DNS protection in this way, and they've actually fed back to me after a number of months. They reckon it's helped them to avoid, if that's the right word, having to make a new recruit to hire somebody. So we're talking, tens of thousands of pounds in recruitment costs to IT companies as well. So as well as saving the customer money, these sort of things are going to really improve your profit margins as an IT or an MSP company.
Yeah, I suppose the next slide that I'll kind of just quickly put in there is, I think it's understanding just how many different ways that these kind of infections can get in. And most of them are and do relate around DNS. So whether it be, them being led and they just kind of being pointed towards that website that's infected, whether that be, an email with a link to kind of a dropper location that will kind of then download the threat that way. Or we can even get it where it's almost poisoning the DNS. So they kind of put it to redirect to what looks like a legitimate site. It's actually a copycat site recording all the keys and information being logged. So yeah, DNS kind of fits into all that and nice and easily, but has a great effect with regards to kind of blocking all this.
Yeah, and let's be honest here. So quite often we blame end users for being silly with a lot of these things, don't we? Especially, where we can be a bit arrogant in the IT, and it's like, why would you click on that and think? But, point number 3 you made there about the website hijacking, I have been working in the industry a long time, and I've almost been caught on more than one occasion by websites that look and feel exactly the same, as big brands and things. And I've almost put my details in. It's it's only that nagging feeling at the back of my head that's like, something's not right here that's preventing me from. And so what we're saying is this, the DNS protection is going to help prevent those scenarios, because anybody can get caught. It's not just inexperienced users.
Oh no, you're totally correct there, Richard. I mean, these guys are very clever, and it's not unless, as you say, you take the time, you have that little seed of doubt, that you investigate where these links going before you actually go, hold on, and you can safely dismiss it as a threat. Yeah. They're copying everything. It looks, the website may be referring to, and the link looks everything. It's maybe just got an extra character in it. It's very, very difficult to tell. Even for us IT, some of the time you do need that check. So certainly having another agency assist us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Yeah. So we're going to take a look at the product itself, but anything else that you want to share? Because I know you've been on the road, haven't you, talking to MSPs?
Yeah. So I've been kind of out and about with this, and it's certainly getting that point across that, from a security perspective. I mean, we've had within the product, so this is the CloudCare product, we've had within here, if I go into the sort of policies where you make all the configuration, we've had content filtering in the product here for some time. Yeah. And that's kind of really the, I suppose, more older way of sort of web control. But it was more from a standpoint around productivity. So it was more an HR related question. You shouldn't really be going on to them during business hours because it's really inappropriate and not in the business interest.
Yeah. So we're not necessarily just talking about stopping bad guys. Yeah. We're talking about, I don't want my employees looking at Facebook during the day, so I'm going to block it. So I think we've all experienced some of that. But the secure web gateway, it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it?
Yeah. It does have that, but again, the main question that it's looking to is from the security aspect. And really kind of doing it that way. Yeah. And there's a couple of different ways that we can approach it as well, very quickly and easily, just depending on where we want that protection to sit. So we can do it either at, so if I just choose a customer, for example here, and rather than adding the device, I want to choose a network location. So what this is doing here is we simply name that, so it will just be site, whatever that kind of company office is in, and we just need the external IP address of their router. Mm-hmm. Whatever is the external point that's then basically handing over all the DNS requests.
Right. Okay, so this is interesting to me because as a geek, I'm immediately jumping in and saying, right, do we have to start messing around with the DNS settings and things like that? But it looks as though it's quite a simple setup then.
It's fairly straightforward. All we need to do is we need to know what the external IP address is for that particular customer site that you're looking after. And then if we can find the DNS forwarding, so whether it be a DNS server or the router itself, if we can get that changed to those IP addresses,
got it.
That's it. That's the system kind of activated. All the DNS queries are now being routed through the system.
Got it. And that's going to keep everybody who uses that router, everybody who connects there for that default gateway. That's
exactly
going to
keep that. Yes. So you're taking that whole net, could have guest phones, their laptops, notepads, etc. It's everything. So that's what's really good about it. And to do it really just as simple as kind of making a couple of configuration changes and adding that in there. That's it in its simplest form. So yeah, a lot of partners have loved that because they'll be able to easily kind of make that change with an access to the router or something, and that's it done. They can then do the reporting and demonstrate that to the customer.
So I want to jump into a little bit more of the features, what's happening behind the scenes here and the reports that you can do. But one of the case scenarios, and I just wonder whether, for organizations that have got more than one office, how does it work from that perspective? Or indeed, Paul, if, an MSP says, right, we're going to set you up with DNS protection here with the secure web gateway, for your office, but are they able to do it for other offices, so other routers? Yeah. And what about users from home as well? Could it be extended there?
It could certainly be extended there. So a number of different ways. So depending on how we want, this is the site, so how we want to pull things together just as a unit. So under this one here, I've got a device. And if you add a network location, you can have multiple network locations under So I can just add another one here and just do it as test 4 or something, and I just and add that, and that'll add in another one under this customer, and we can kind of add it. So we can add that there. This is just a way of kind of us organizing it. You may want to have the customer down as different installers, depending on different sites. Entirely up to you. We also have, as you said there, is more the end user. So perhaps they don't have, you know, they've maybe got a very simple router that's provided by their internet service provider. They can't really make the change there. But what we can do is we can provide through that the installer to go onto the endpoint.
Right.
So we can create the installer that will put on the Cloud Care agent. Once we have the Cloud Care agent, if you decide to use the AV, but you don't have to, you could just put on the secure web gateway.
Got it.
And if you wish to, we also give you a free remote control.
Right, okay. And that's the remote controls bundled in there as well, is it?
Yeah, so you can have that remote capability along with that, create that installer. You could have that go out to them as, you know, here's a file, so you could install it yourself. Yeah. Or what I find particularly useful that I think a number of our partners done is create that package again, but this time through the email, I can actually generate a link.
Yeah.
I can post, and that will install the agent with the web gateway. And that's it. All from that link. That goes out. All those endpoints are then protected, and they will have the same restrictions within the policy, whether they're out of the office. So as you say, it's that protection as well, that even if they take their laptop home or to Costas or any other kind of Wi-Fi access point, they're still protected as if they were in that network.
Got it.
That kind of UTM device.
And of course, being a former MSP owner myself, I can immediately hear some of the questions that MSPs are going to be asking of this. So which platforms can you deploy the agent upon?
Yeah, so at the moment, unfortunately, it's Windows just at its early stage, but we are looking to bring Mac and so forth in later.
Got it.
In order for the network, that will actually work on pretty much any platform.
Yeah. Because
it's at the router level. Now, the one thing we do have, which gives an increased level of security, is under the Secure Web Gateway, is enabling SSL inspection.
Ah, okay.
So
tell me more about why that's really important, because you've already alluded to that fact.
Yeah, so what we've seen now is there's a huge increase in how cyber criminals are manipulating and getting a hold of SSL certificates. So that SSL traffic, such as we can see where I'm located in here, we're located, and I think there's that, understanding or idea that we're safe.
Yeah.
Because it's got an SSL certificate, the company must have purchased that and registered that. Unfortunately, as is always the case, the cyber criminals are finding ways through that. And because it's now encrypting the message and traffic from the endpoint to that website and back again, we can't really tell if there's anything being maliciously put through that. So we can actually download a certificate, and the instructions there tell you how to add it to any kind of Mac, Android, or Apple device. So even if it's within the network, it will actually decrypt that SSL certificate. And this is something that I think inherently we did kind of have that. I think when it used to be kind of a big hardware box that used to do this secure web gateway, but I think more often than not, it was turned off because I think it had too much of a performance impact. But it seems now more than ever we're needing this. So being able to kind of do that, because I think that is the misconception that you are safe just because you're on HTTPS.
Agreed,
no longer the case.
It's a full safety, isn't it? It's not the case at all. So talk me through some of the features then. So we've got it installed, we've got it on... Go ahead.
Yeah, so say what we've got in here is we've also got within the settings and stuff, you can see here if there was any internal resources. So it didn't go out to our servers to do the DNS, we can kind of get that. And then you've got the simple web filtering as well. So you can use it the same as the content filtering, to kind of block and allow that kind of access. But really it's more security is the first question. Is it safe, yes or no? Is it under then one of these categories?
Yeah,
we can do that. Of course, there's white and black lists that you can kind of allow before. Yeah. But one interesting part is if you have a mix of the two. So you may have a policy applied to the network, but because you can also apply a policy to that Windows device, you can have different policies, and often there's different sets of rules, depending on what policy is associated with that device.
So give us an example of how you might use that in the real world.
Yeah, so I think there was a scenario I spoke with a customer where they were saying, right, okay, we've got a sort of a site that's manufacturing, very limited, wanted to lock it down. So what they done is they put on the network, the router, they applied a policy that pretty much blocked all internet access apart from a couple of resources. That was all they had, because that's all they should really need for pretty much anyone straight off the bat. However, management and so forth would need access to get into other areas, finances, etc. We were able to put the policy on those with more open web filtering, and because that's nearer the endpoint, it overwrites the ruling. So they could actually go to more areas. Yeah. So it could be almost like teachers in the education have more access than the pupils, and so forth. So it does still have that content filtering edge, but is much more on a security footing because it's taking every transaction or DNS query and being able to do that. And as you can see, I mean, I don't use it an awful lot within my test environment, but within the past week, 2 weeks, it's still dealing with 70,000 requests.
That's quite sobering, isn't it? Yeah.
And of that, it's saying that it needed to block 5,000 of them because they were under those categories we just didn't allow. But what I find kind of more worrying, even though I had it and didn't realise, is this little part over here that says there was 2 threats that were trying to get through.
So you weren't aware of those threats trying to get through? I know this is a test environment, but this isn't something you did like, okay,
I didn't maliciously go on to or anything to try and break the system. These are just ones that have been, whilst I've been testing about, have obviously been links on pages and everything else, and they appear.
That's scary. That really is scary, isn't it? Yeah.
Being able to kind of see that.
The reporting it, forgive me for interrupting, I was going to say the reporting, it looks like you've got a ton of options there. Rather, we haven't got time to go through them all. And I'm a security geek, so I would love to. But what are your sort of favourite reports, or what are the reports that you think?
Yeah, so certainly being able to kind of, first of all, I think the first report is obviously demonstrating just how, unfortunately, how frightening that is. And then probably the next one to me would be, before we kind of sit and go through what categories are allowed and so forth, and really sitting down that, you can just pull off a report and just see, as a rule, how are things being kind of used? Because it may not be that people are maliciously or being unproductive by sitting on shopping sites. We can kind of get an idea of, here's where most people are going. Is it such a big issue? And I think that is the case, rather than, I think most people like to get on and do their job. It's just perhaps a handful of individuals that need to be brought into line. But the good thing is that can also be actually scheduled. So that's something that you can get done just on a regular basis. Just, at the end of the month, say, here we go, just so you can keep an eye that nobody is. And then if they are doing it, we can address the kind of filtering to make sure that we kind of cut back on that. But it's the same as all the reports. And a lot of these are to do with the endpoint security and so forth as well.
Yeah, and the reporting, Paul, from an MSP's perspective, an IT company's perspective, does that go back with the Avast label, or is that can it be white labeled? What does it look like?
They can actually change the little logo and everything themselves, which is always a nice piece that they want to do. I'm sure you would probably rather have their MSP send it to themselves. so when they set up a report schedule, they can choose for how long, who it goes to, and then probably to themselves just to double check it, maybe even to then kind of, or print off and then sit down with the customer. And one of those catch-ups and say, here's what we found.
And I think this is really important. And the reason I asked about like putting the logo on there is that when you become good at what you do as an IT company, as a managed service provider, end users, clients don't see all the work that you do, and they assume that everything's just absolutely fine. And then they come to you with the immortal question, or the dreaded question. They go, what is it we're paying you for? So I think from an IT company's perspective, it's really important to demonstrate on a regular basis via reports, via these things, to say, hey, we are keeping you safe, and the bad guys are trying to get to you, but they're not. So you don't want people to think that we don't need any of this stuff. It's all just safe out there.
Yeah, exactly that. And showing your worth, as it were, what your service is over and above what is just essentially an endpoint AV product. They need to know that what you're paying for. And this is, as you say, really the reporting has a lot of weight to that. I mean, you could, if you wish to, because you can even give customers, if you need to have that transparency, you can even, for this customer, I can do here is give them a login.
Oh, okay.
So they can actually access information and maybe even remote onto devices themselves. Yeah. Some people like to be so open because then the customers feel that they are getting their value in a more open, sort of trusted relationship with their partner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed something there just in the contact information. You got the Autotask customer ID. So what does the integration look like? So for the more progressive IT companies who are using...
So the important thing probably from that perspective is really from a billing. So you can see all the invoices. So for all those customers, you would have what is, the cost from Avast going to be and how they break that down. So we can go through and actually have an integration. A simple thing is, say there's instructions there on how you can pull, and it's really more from the billing aspect rather than anything else. Because that's kind of the important part, to get that billing into kind of Autotask so that you can then add it with anything else to your billing based on the endpoint licenses, web security endpoints, or the backup and so forth that's offered.
And from the billing perspective, Paul, what are you seeing IT companies and MSPs do? Are they giving this away to their clients as a value add, or are they charging for this as a service, or somewhere in between?
I think some are trying. I think with the costings, I think that they do end up having to kind of bundle it together as a security service. That's always a lot easier when you're dealing with new customers, and you can kind of have that conversation where you bundle it. So you're saying, well, the difference is mine is not just an AV as some other ones may be. You're kind of using it as an endpoint security with web. But others are having to kind of maybe with their existing customers sell it as a kind of cost. But there are one or two that are absorbing the costs at the moment, just because, as you alluded to earlier, the time and so forth that can save through blocking those, that actually it's worth the small amount of finance to perhaps just absorb that until perhaps renew or renegotiate with the customer.
Absolutely agreed. And I know a lot of MSPs with this technology, they're looking at it and saying, how much is it going to save us? And that saving is going to be way more than the cost of the effectively the licenses. So it makes sense from that perspective. So cool.
But it is an education piece, especially with this, getting them to understand just how complex that is, and that's why I kind of put together some of those figures that can be used, and they're more than happy to share, so that they can market that out to their customers, whether they be existing or new, to kind of demonstrate why they would need this security solution rather than just selling box products of EV.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, I've known you for a long time. You are a veteran in this industry. And so I've leveraged our friendship by putting you on the spot and saying, let's record a video about this. You're a good sport for doing it. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all, Richard.
Before we draw a line under today, is there anything else that you want to share with anyone watching? Because hopefully this allows people to see not only the DNS protection, the secure web gateway product, but Avast is a little bit more than just free antivirus, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot more. I mean, there's a backup, as I alluded to in here. There's email security, but really it'd just be a case of reaching out. We're more than happy to say myself, that's my kind of role, is to kind of go through this in individual sessions with, anyone that wishes to kind of look at the product and discuss really how it's going to kind of fit or what their needs are as a kind of MSP. And we've got the product sets there, depending on what they're looking for. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting one. We're looking to grow the products. We've got to focus on security. We're actually going to take this to another level so that this is delivered through an integration with Zscaler. We're going to actually bring in a secure internet gateway offering later this year. So that's kind of not just on web traffic, but everything.
Yeah.
So that's going to kind of replace some of that hardware, UTM devices and stuff. So that'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
And we're also going to bring in more. So we're going to have a patch management brought in to the product as well. So holding on that will be more
stuff here,
which is no. It's delivered through a partnership with Ivanti, but it goes through everything: Adobe, Java, everything. So you are looking at all those applications, not just the Microsoft operating system stuff. So be able to tick that big box with regards to Cyber Essentials, saying yes, I am fully patched, and that'll be great.
So important. So when you are able to talk about that, can I put you on the spot again, and maybe we'll fire up another video?
No problem. I'm not holding it. Yes, that's no problem at all, Richard.
Thank you, mate. We appreciate it. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best email address or best way for them to reach you?
Best email address would probably just be myself, so it's paul.fenwick@avast.com, and I can put you in touch with anybody else. But yeah, that's probably the easiest method for now.
Fantastic. Paul,
or comment through the website.
Through the website, of course. Really appreciate your time today, mate. Thank you. I know you're at home in Dundee and I've got a lot of stuff on your plate, so thank you for spending the time talking.
No problem at all. Been a pleasure, Richard. Nice speaking to you again.
Cheers, mate. Take care.